Thank you all for coming. It's a beautiful Friday morning, and we have obviously a wonderful representation from the K-12 setting to have a conversation. So most importantly, I think what we need to kind of recognize is this is really kind of PK-16 conversation, and that's what's really important here. To provide the welcome, we are very fortunate to have President Gaber. So she has a very busy schedule today, but was able to fit a little bit of time in. So we very much appreciate that. So President Gaber.
Well, good morning, and thank you all for being here. So when Dean Whitty said I have a busy schedule, I get to go downtown and raise the flag for Rocket Week. So that is, very, go Rockets. But I wanted to be here really to welcome all of the superintendents to campus, and certainly to Savage Arena, to the Grogan Room, and I hope many of you have been here before. My understanding is that 5 out of 7 of our superintendents have degrees from the university. So the other 2, we can sign you up right now if you're interested, okay? We are willing and available. I just want to thank you. Part of this discussion, clearly, is to talk about the pipeline, teacher education. But for all of our superintendents, I'd like you also to think about anything that we can do to help you in your school districts, whether it's through the College of Education, through another college or department. We're here, and part of the conversation about Rocket Week is we are this community's university. We want to be a resource to all of you, and we'll continue to do that. So I'd say along the way, if there's something that's outside of the College of Education, clearly in the College of Education you can get a hold of Dean Whitty. Outside of that, you can either go through him and it'll come to me and I can help, or you can just email me directly. I tell people if you can't remember my name, you can email UT President and it'll get to me, so that's great. From the 7 districts, we have between 3,000 and 4,000 students from your districts attending the university. When you think about the fact that our university is about 40% graduate students, that we have obviously law degrees and medical degrees, physician assistants, pharmacy, that is really a nice number to think about, particularly from your area. I also want to recognize Tom Brady, and he's sitting in the back, and you all know Tom Brady. He's been a great friend and supporter of the Judith College of Education, former dean of the college, and as I said to him when I came in, I truly appreciate all that he does in the community to talk about the great things going on in the college and on campus. So thank you, Tom, and welcome. So we know that every teacher, administrator, support staff talks about student success. We talk about it in our school districts. We talk about it at the university. I'm proud that this year, our 6-year graduation rate is up to 51%. Now, we are not satisfied with that, but I'll tell you that in 4 years, we have made progress and gone from 42% to 51% because we are paying attention and because we are continuing to push that. In our strategic plan, our goal was to reach 50% 2 years out from now. We've already reached that, and we are going to continue pushing. We are also paying attention to underrepresented minorities and their graduation rates, and just saw a preview of our update to our diversity plan. What we're seeing is that our African American students have made progress in their graduation rates also, and it is because we are paying attention and focusing on that. I'd also like to point out that we had the best academically prepared freshman class last year, and our preliminary data points that this year's even going to surpass last year's academic success for our incoming class. And for the second year in a row, and quite honestly, I think it's 6 out of the past 7 or 8 years, Toledo received the Mid-American Conference's Institutional Academic Achievement Award for having the best GPA amongst our student athletes, and we're proud that they certainly focus on the student part and academic success in addition to being strong athletes. So really today this is about continuing the dialogue, what's needed in their school districts in terms of teacher preparation. I again would suggest that we continue to broaden it so that we think about if there are things I need to know about, what are we doing campus-wide, I encourage you to give that information back to me. We are proud that last year 99% of our students passed the Ohio Assessment for Educators as part of their licensure. So again, very proud of the college and the work that they're doing, and we're preparing the workforce for our region. With that, I want to say thank you all very much. Thanks for the collaboration, for the opportunities to work with these school districts. They are certainly important to us, and I hope you will continue to think about, obviously, teachers, teacher preparation, placements for our students, but then I'll tell you that things like our students who are doing science work, our faculty who have opportunities to be in your classrooms, College Credit Plus, we have a range of offerings that we'd like to be able to share with you, and I encourage you to reach out. We'll now enjoy Rocket Week this next week when we'll play Murray State next a week from Saturday, but thank you all very much, and go Rockets.
Thank you, President Gaber. Obviously, the awareness and importance of the college and what it does is felt, I think, by the higher administration. I feel that every time I'm in meetings. There's always a part of the conversation that deals with us. So I think we are important. We're being watched. They want to see how we're moving the college along. And one way we can do that, I think, is by having good, really collegial dialogue. And that's why you have the individuals here in front of you, so that we can have that kind of dialogue and that kind of really important conversation about issues now and how we address those issues. We are symbiotic. We need each other. And for that reason, we need to have a good conversation and a good kind of two-way street where we can feel like we can do this. My hope would be this is just the first of many conversations that we can have, and good conversations. So we provide the most highly qualified teacher candidates to walk into their jobs, and that's really what I think is important, because if we do that, then we're taking care of children, and that's the most important thing. We are educators, we help. And that's why we're all here today, and that's why we're going to have the conversations around the issues that we have. So let me quickly introduce everyone. You probably know everyone, so they're familiar faces. You do have the bios as part of your package, so please review that information. But on my right, from TPS is obviously Dr. Romulus Durant. Dr. Todd Kramer from Maumee City Schools. Dr. Fritz from Anthony Wayne Schools. Mr. Tom Hostler from Perrysburg Schools, is that right? You have to realize this group is very dynamic, and we do a lot of tongue-in-cheek, and Tom can give as well as he can receive, and he's a good man about that. Katie Anstead, who was Tom's right-hand person, now is at Washington Local. You. Hal Gregory from Oregon City Schools. And finally, on my far left is Dr. Adam Fineski, formerly of Sylvania, but now is superintendent of Ottawa Hills. So let me briefly kind of give you an idea of how this could and hopefully will run. The superintendents were given a set of kind of questions in 4 major quadrants. I wanted them to have something that they could respond to. These were generated through conversation based on basically visits, observations, and conversations with educators both out in the field and here in higher ed. And what I'm going to basically be doing is kind of setting up some of the questions and hopefully having one or more responses from the superintendents to kind of weigh in on how important this issue is, what they're doing, the challenges associated with that, so forth. We have quite a few questions, most of which we probably will not get through, but we will do our best. We will take a break, and Kathy, you'll have to keep me on the clock in regards to when that has to happen. We'll take a break, and then we come back, and then it's kind of questions from the audience. It's open question. It could be, we could continue the conversation with questions we had before, or we could go in different ways. But it's really about having rich conversation about issues. And hopefully that's what we'll take away from today. So if no one has any questions about how this is going to work, I'll be happy to throw out the first question, and I'll leave it to the esteemed panel to kind of think about that and reflect. Most of the faculty know I have a mental health background, so I have to ask that question. It's required of me, but I think it's an important one that has to be addressed. And I'll be honest, it is a conversation that comes up all too frequently. And I would like to just kind of throw that out to everyone, the panel in particular. How important are mental health issues within your district at this point in time? And what do you see as some viable options and alternatives for you as you start moving through the school year here?
Yeah, I guess I can start. In Oregon, obviously the mental health broad term means a lot to different people. There's a lot of things that go on with kids nowadays that we never experienced as kids, certainly with the technology and all that that's available to them. But it's still a challenge for all of us, so how do you do that? And in the past, we've kind of had to rely on outside agencies to really take care of all this. The Harbors, the Unisons, and the groups that are around the community. But in Oregon, at least, we're finding that those resources are stretched very, very, very thin, that we have to take ownership of it. And I think most of our school districts understand the importance of taking ownership of our own kids, so to speak, and their mental health. We're blessed to have a Mercy Health partnership that provides us with a pediatric doctor's office, essentially, clinic in Oregon, which it's interesting because all our nurses will say the majority of what they do is mental health in the buildings. It's a little bit of medical, and it's a whole lot of every bellyache really is because they're worried about something kind of thing. And so it's real. So, we've been addressing it at a very, simplistic level for a long time, and we certainly try to make connections. Well, last year we started a partnership with an individual therapist, clinical psychologist, who's actually connected with UT, supervises their doctoral students. And it has made an amazing difference at our high school. And this year we're looking to expand that throughout the district. And we're really looking to build a one-stop shop kind of place with our health clinic and the nurse practitioner that works in that clinic. Because a lot of times there's a diagnosis, but then it takes forever to get somebody to, if prescriptions are needed or if medications are needed, it can take forever. Or there's barriers with families, to follow through. If we can do it on campus, parents send their kids there, take care of it, go home. So it is a big, big problem. So that's the clinical side of it. I think the other side of mental health is what are you doing day to day proactively to address those things? And there's curriculums in place throughout the district. Our counselors are working with kids every single day. I know many districts will probably talk about some parental programs and those types of things. So we're working very hard to figure out a program. I don't know if any of us have the answer yet. If they do, let me know. See if I'm on the right track. But anybody want to build upon that? What they're doing in their districts with it?
I think in our district, we are currently doing a lot of the same things that Hal is mentioning. You have to be proactive and reactive in some situations to the mental health of our students, but also our staff as well. That's a component of this. We just had conversations yesterday administratively about trauma-informed classrooms, and as administrators, how do we help our staff understand day-to-day the students and when they're coming into our classrooms, what they could have been exposed to and experienced the night before. That's a part of it. I think from the proactive standpoint, one of the things that we're focusing in on a lot in our district is the personal side of learning and trying to develop skills within students to have resiliency, to have the growth mindset, to be able to withstand some of the trauma that they may have been exposed to, or some of the social pressures and so forth that they may be exposed to. And we've been working with the Character Lab, which is Angela Duckworth, if you know her. We've been very fortunate to work with her and establish some relationships there and some focused activities within our K through 12 classrooms where we integrate those experiences within the curriculum and develop those skill sets based on certain characteristics that we're looking for. So I think the proactive piece and obviously there's a lot of reactive pieces that we have to be involved in when students are coming in and into the classrooms or into the offices and sharing some of the stories that they have. From social workers to mental health experts. We have some partnerships as well in the community that we work with to provide services to our students, but also to our families who are struggling. So there's a variety of things that we're all doing.
Just to add, okay. Just to add from an urban perspective, and then in the city of Toledo, but mental health crosses all boundaries, whether it's socioeconomic, race, ethnicity, whatever that may be. Many individuals suffer from mental health, and so it's upon us, and as an educator, to make sure that we provide opportunity to address those in early phases, because the best intervention is prevention. And so what we do is we work with multiple mental health agencies throughout the city of Toledo. So we have literally probably over 12 partners within that come from mental health agency. And what we do is develop an advisory board. So we have an advisory board that's made up of all mental health agencies, along with a district representative, and we use Dr. Roseman here from the University of Toledo to facilitate those conversations, as well as best practices. So again, what you will find is, because many mental health agencies are recognizing that they can easily bill Medicaid, some of them come not prepared or licensed or certified. You have to do the due diligence to make sure, and so we develop partners with purpose, meaning you come to us with a purpose and you have high quality within what you do, and we see to it that within that, this advisory board has set up criteria that you have to have CAPE certifications and all these different certifications before you can even come into our school to work with any of our students. But that provides, one, a safeguard for the district to make sure high quality is happening, but two, you don't want to make sure that individuals aren't coming in here building double Medicaid or double billing and all of other things that could bring another rapid trouble to the building. So we work with that. At the same time, we understand that many times your mental issues sometimes stem from the physical. So we have students, in essence, within our district who haven't been to the doctor since birth. And we recognize that because we identify needs immediately within the building based on having clinics now built within our schools. So right now, almost all our high schools have a clinic within the school, wraparound service agencies within some of our elementaries and high need areas to provide wraparound services to students in regards to all needs. So just to give you some data, such for in regards to when we did vision and hearing. We do 1,100 screenings every year. Over the past 5 years, we average about 80% of new students needing prescription glasses. So again, kids going extensively into further education, visually impaired. And I always stress, because then we have full-time nurses in all our schools. So again, you're talking about 50 schools now have full-time nurses from morning to the end of the day. Because at the end of the day, a seizure, an epidemic, whatever, just doesn't happen when a nurse happens to be there. It will happen times that knowing that the support and had the best skill to address is not there. And so one of the alarming funny things about it is that how many are familiar with diastec? Anybody know what a diastec is? So it's when a child has a seizure, And I'm gonna get to it because I was a principal. And before we had full-time nurses, when a nurse was gone, me as a principal was responsible 3 days a week to, administer whatever was necessary. The nurse says, I'm leaving Dr. Grant tomorrow, here goes the box. I open the box, okay, medication, and I see this box is Diastay. I look at the picture on the back of the box, I looked at her and I said, this is the wrong box. She said, oh no, this is for you. I said, oh no, I'm not doing this. Do you understand what a Diastay is? That when you had to implement in regards to calming the seizure down from the anal cavity of a child who's already shaking. There is no way that I'm skilled. As much as I'm an athlete of the University of Toledo, I have the ability to do that. But it began to say that there are high-quality professionals and there are needs within a building that nurses provide. In many cases, the nurses in urban schools are the first line of defense for physical need. Many times, that's their family doctor in regards to when they come to school. And so we find is that we have to recommend to parents that when you come in over the weekend, your kids with broken arms, you don't wait till Monday. Here's our number, call us so we can make sure that we provide recommended care. But again, all those things come into play when you talk about mental health. We're right now having the advisory committee develop a curriculum that is decided amongst the professionals and not at an educational institution. This is not our wheelhouse. In other words, mental health experts are the ones who are the expert in the field, and they're the ones deciding what our curriculum is. They're the ones that decide on how the wraparound and how we filter agencies to come in. And that's ultimately what collective work is about in regards to allowing everyone to come into the game and be an expert in what they do to really provide a collective impact. So that's kind of somewhat of what we do in TPS.
And the only thing I would add from Maumee, a lot of commonality amongst the districts, is when we think about school safety, really a lot of that is about creating a positive mental health environment in your schools. And so really it's another layer, and it's another necessary layer to have safe schools, is to create that positive mental health environment. And the other thing that we've come to realize in Maumee is we can provide all these services to students, but if we're returning them to the same environment every night, and then they come back, you see that regression, right? So you make all this progress, and then it's like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. So really engaging the families is our focus this year. So not only providing the therapy to the students, but also going out to homes and making services available after school so that we can have that generational impact on all of our families and not just focus on being reactive on what the students are bringing to school.
And I think I'm just falling apart here. Katie, can you?
Already? Thank you. Luckily, Katie's still next.
Tom needs help.
She's running 2 districts right now.
Yeah.
So I think one of the important things to keep in mind is the state budget was released just this past summer, the biennium budget, and that guides Ohio's funding for the next 2 years. Funding in Ohio for education was generally frozen in terms of how much money is being applied to school districts on a base level, except for one of the exceptions is mental health. And so this is going to be a theme I think you're going to continue to hear from the state in terms of a priority. The governor has made it clear that this is something that's important to him, and that is mental health and wellness and supporting these services. So they've already begun to talk about the next biennium budget and including additional funds for these services and expanding. So I think for educators coming out of college, for graduate students, I think it's important to understand that this is something that is not just a flavor of the month, but I think there's a real commitment at the state level to make sure that these things are happening. And you've heard from the panelists that this is a priority here in our schools and in our communities. Anything to reduce what Hal said and said it very well, just eliminating any barriers that students have, and mental health is a barrier to learning. So anything that we can do is important.
Absolutely. And I think a key piece from my perspective in Ottawa Hills and being in Sylvania before is that these issues exist everywhere. And I think an important message for your students who sometimes may have certain districts may have a stigma that maybe that doesn't happen there or the problems are less there. They're there. They're just different. My experience in a large district like Sylvania with almost 8,000 students and seeing issues there, and then coming to Ottawa Hills with 1,000 students and seeing extreme mental health issues in a different way, with stress, anxiety, pressure to be the best all the time, the line is just as long at the counselor's office there. So I think that's an important message to your students who maybe are going out to the buildings and, you know, going to a certain district they may think is something that's maybe different than what they think. I think that's important to keep in mind.
I kind of want to build on what, and I always do this, on what Mr. Hostler said about preparation. I think that the preparation that we had as educators obviously is very different than what we want to send educators today out with. Real experiences with mental health issues, not just textbook, this is what you're going to see, but really getting into your classrooms, talking with your students, mental health providers that can really talk about those partnerships and how important they are, teaching teachers to spot things, to be on the lookout for things so that they know what those warning signs are. You know, we're sending 22-year-olds out into classrooms with students that might have life-threatening issues coming from home. And although I went into that same situation as a very young person, I feel like today there's just much more to watch for. So really making sure that those experiences are real. Like Oregon, Washington Local is on the verge of creating a campus health clinic where not only our students but our families can be treated, and mental health will be a big component of that as well. We're really excited about that, and we're kind of following Oregon's model there. So.
Just one quick comment about what Mr. Hostler mentioned about the state budget. So in my district, we'll receive, you know, if you followed the news, there was $675 million allocated towards mental health. It sounds like a big number. That's $170,000 in my district this year, which ends up being $37 per student. So when you break it down there, it doesn't seem like much. But know that we've been already doing things, and that's the great situation that we've been in, and we know that we've got much work to do, and it does help. But the reality of it is there's not enough money there to help us do some of the things that we really want to do. So we have to look locally, work with our constituents locally to make this a reality for our students and provide support for them.
One last point, particularly if you're involved and wanting to get involved in mental health, one of the things that, from my perspective, what I do with the district and working with our team is that no mental health agency can come and just be a sporadic 2 days a week. Let me come on Tuesdays and Thursdays and pull a kid out. If you're not going to embed yourself into the school, then we'll find another institution that will. Because at the end of the day, to address mental health is just not on a Tuesday and Thursday thing. You're in that building Monday through Friday developing coping skills for kids and reminding them of those coping skills before they have a breakout. And if those things that are reinforced from that individual being in the school, communicating to educators about those coping skills, because it's merely sometimes just a touch of a soft object that will calm a child down. And I've seen them that say there's a pat on the pocket, and the educators are starting doing a pat on the pocket with the student, because there's something in the pocket that when a child feels themselves going there, they just put their hand in the pocket and it calms them down. And it's those type of things that really help, particularly communicating, working together, but more importantly, you're there Monday through Friday, walking through the halls, walking in the cafeteria, showing up at the game, that ultimately reinforces the conversation you have with the child.
Great comments. If I can just add a little bit from Katie's comment, some of you may know in past life I was a Red Cross volunteer for disaster mental health. So I would go in when there were tornadoes, floods, whatever, and a team would go in and we would obviously help both first responders and those who were impacted. And of course, you know, you get the immediate trauma issue and what have you. The point of this comment is, as a team, we had to and worked very hard at making sure we took care of ourselves first. That was always the priority, because if we couldn't deliver on helping those individuals, there was no point of us being there. I mention that because I think what's really important, in addition to everything that's been said, is we need to really help teachers have good, resilient skills, because they're the front line. Students are going to talk to them, even before they will probably talk to a counselor. And it's important for teachers to feel, one, not overwhelmed, somewhat confident that they could, you know, at least have that conversation. And more importantly, if they're feeling stressors as part of the job, they need to have tools. They need to know what they need to do to take care of themselves. And that was the same for our team when we walked into a disaster. We can't help anyone if we're not good. Teachers can't help their students if they don't have the confidence and the skills to know, okay, this child is hurting. Do we talk a little bit? Do I move this person over to see the counselor? Do they go down? Whatever the case might be. But I think sometimes we overlook the fact that we need to take care of ourselves, and that's important as teachers because they're going to be dealing with these issues day to day, and they're going to hear those stories just as what's been mentioned. Any quick comments from the audience in regards to this? If not, we can move to another area because great conversation. I just want to make sure we cover more than one. And we can always come back to this as well. All right? Anything? All right. Thank you all. How about let's take a little bit different angle here, and I'll just throw out this question. And this is one that's on the list as well. And this is, we're going to be self-serving here, okay? As a college, and clearly within teacher education, we exist to meet the needs of PK-12. How can we do that better? From your perspective as individuals who take our students, who fill the classrooms, what can and should we be doing better? I'd say mental health obviously is a good conversation to have and being as prepared as possible. What other things would you suggest or have come up in regards to working with specifically our students? Not putting you on the spot. Hypothetically, no.
I'll take it. I think, in essence, developing a collective conversation, in essence, of some of the teacher prep programs that they go through the course of study. Meaning that what I'll get is sometimes a university person will come and say, Dr. Durant, we see that you probably will need cultural awareness and relevancy. Let me help you in regard to getting your new teachers and teachers there up to speed. I'm like, no, I needed them to walk into the door with cultural awareness and relevancy. I needed them to be prepared because they already are immersed day one and having to understand what some of those dynamics and relevancies are. And so how do we have conversation about what are the things that we see that are disconnect between a course of study and what day one looks like for a teacher? At the same time, you know, I think student teaching should be more than just a semester or a year or however. Student teaching should start in the second semester of your freshman year once you've declared that education is something that you want to do. Meaning that the more I can expose a prep teacher or a student teacher to the best practices of various practitioners, the more that they could develop inventory of interventions of how to respond to kids of various needs. So if you come into my school district, there are going to be various needs that you're going to be able to address first day one. In regard to a child who may be a little bit hyperactive, to a child that ultimately has had mental health issues, to a child who has physical issues, at the same time to children who ultimately may be 2 years behind based on just how the system is set up. How does one respond to that? And many of the times, many of the student teachers come in and say, wow, I love how you did that. Please speak upon it. Starting within the freshman year. And they begin to build up those years. You can imagine by the time they get to their senior year and doing student teaching, this individual has had 3 years of collective inventory of building for best practices. And at the same time, another one to add is us being able to be involved. In other words, we have an intern program, meaning every first-year teacher goes through our intern program, and they are assigned a highly qualified and identified teacher that helps them through their first year. Meaning, in our district, there's several passwords, several codes you got to get through just to get in on certain mainframes and certain programs. At the same time, how to go about navigating for curriculum development, all the things that you're going to need, all of a sudden it's all jumped upon you day one. This individual is there to take care of all those needs. At the same time, meaning if you may be a little bit intimidated, not necessarily want to approach the principal or just haven't necessarily developed a collegiality amongst your other peers, this individual is there to make that happen. And so they're there, and so some of the things is in essence of how do we utilize those who ultimately may be employed within our district, utilizing those professionals who sit. So we have about 20 relief teachers who go out and do this to around over 200 teachers. And so them giving you some feedback, at the same time, them having some conversations about, here's what you can expect when you come in. At the same time, here's how we work with you on best practices and et cetera. But the most exciting thing about it is what they say is, those who are consultants say there's a reciprocity, or I should say, a reciprocity in learning. Because I may be a 20-year veteran teacher in the game who's identified as highly qualified, but they're coming with new approaches, and I'm learning from you just as you're learning from me, but at the end of the day, I'm gonna make your life a lot easier because I know the system. And so those things such as that. So I think those are things that we could do collectively in essence of my district, and we're willing to provide that type of assistance and collaboration.
Actually, I have experience with that model, and it works very, very well. It does. It truly does.
I think in our district, as I think about what we're focusing on right now, obviously, we have a formula in our district that we concentrate on, which is, we believe student success is based on personal growth plus academic growth. If we can get our students to believe, we call it hope, in that they'll be successful, that we believe that we'll see student success, which is ultimately they're ready for whatever's at the doorstep of what they choose to do at graduation, whether it be career, college, and or the military. And so understanding, having our teachers coming in with an understanding of what that personal success or that personal growth should look like. And we've been focusing on that for about 6 years now because it's very important to their overall development. I think sometimes we get so focused on the academic growth that we don't focus enough on that personal growth side of what is needed for our students to be successful in life. Because that's really, I think, the essence of what public education is all about, is making them successful not only for whatever career they choose in academic pursuits that they have or lifelong learning, but also that personal side. And so I think that's something that, you know, we, like I said, we get so focused on the academic side that we need to also focus on the personal growth side.
And this was touched on, but the theme of building that resilience within our educators. If you look at why educators leave the field, it's not because they couldn't master the content. It's not because they weren't willing to put in the work. Usually it has to do with dealing with all the factors that our students are bringing, and how do I manage that along with all my other responsibilities. So I think finding ways to develop that within our teacher candidates so when they come, they're not overwhelmed. I mean, I always take a chance to visit classrooms of first-year educators, and you see them on day one, and to see them at the end of the year and ask them about what was the most difficult point of their school year, and almost everyone will say they weren't prepared to deal with all the emotional factors. And it's great, right, that they care about our kids. It's great that they care about the families that they're involved with. But that is a lot for a 22-year-old to take on. And so I think making sure that our educators are prepared for that, and you know, just giving some thoughts as to ways to tackle that. You know, I don't know if there's a way through more internships or paid internships. And I think just overall making our field more attractive to candidates who are not sure necessarily what path they want to take when they enter college. Having kids of my own that are college age and friends with the same, you know, almost every other field has a paid internship associated with it, right? I think that could make our field more attractive. I think that the wages and all the attractive parts of working in education, there are a lot of bonuses to our field, and I think emphasizing those over the negatives that we tend to see in the media all the time would definitely be helpful in helping us attract the best candidates to be in our classrooms with our kids.
Okay. Any comments or responses from the audience? Nancy?
Hi, Nancy. Could you expand this question to include principal preparation? What you might see as characteristics for principals, what your needs are? Did you hear my question? My question was, could you expand the same question to the preparation of school leaders?
Well, I would just say I think it's somewhat similar because to make sure that they realize that the job is big and beyond what maybe in their training in a classroom at the university. And as Romulus talked about a responsibility that he had when his nurse left the building, our principals are faced with so many things beyond worrying about test scores and curriculum and making sure the standards are all met. I think they'd all like to do that way more in their day, but end up dealing with so many other things throughout their day. So making sure they're prepared and getting those experiences, just like we want for our incoming teachers, is huge. The hands-on, out in the trenches, really seeing the job and what it is to be a principal these days, which is much different than before.
If I can add, here's my biggest thing that I'm working with my current administrators on, and myself as well, is a lot of folks think principals specifically are just, they come in with the idea of there's a bunch of tasks a principal has to do, so they're like managers, right? The whole leadership versus management thing. But in my district, we have great managers, I mean, those buildings are organized, they run, those hallways, those schedules, they're all done. Man, they are perfect. They are. I mean, handbooks are awesome. Rules are set, right? We have all that. It's been that way forever. Well done. But they haven't talked to a teacher about improving curriculum in 10 years, so to speak. And we're really growing and training and trying to get folks comfortable with that being the priority. Not that you can fail on the other side, you know what I'm saying, but you can't put all your time in the other side. You have to be a leader anymore, because education's all different. You have to be a leader of people, and you have to make that environment a place people want to be. Kids, staff, principals, parents, because there's choices everywhere beyond our 7 walls here, right? We all know that. So I think anything you can do to help these young folks that want to be a principal understand it's about you as a leader. And there's a lot of training, there's a lot of different concepts to get to leadership. It's not just managing.
I think, really, to build on what Hal said, giving feedback. OTES kind of got a really bad rap when it first came out, but there is a lot of good in there if feedback is given appropriately. And I think the hardest thing when a teacher transitions to administration is that first crucial conversation that you have to have with someone you've worked alongside maybe for many years. Now all of a sudden you're not their colleague, you're their boss. That's not natural. It isn't natural to have crucial conversation skills, and I think that's something that might be something we can improve at this level, is to teach how to give feedback, how to do it correctly, how to do it empathetically, and yet encourage growth, because that's really why we're giving feedback. So.
Okay.
I think I made a note here, and I think Hal covered it very well in terms of we need leaders and not managers. And I think talking about what that means, because until you've sat in the chair in a building, you're really not sure what it feels like. And I think that that courage is often something that comes with leaders, and being open to failure, trying things, and like what we talk about in our district is, take that chance, try it, and if it fails, let's fail forward. And I think as people, that's really challenging, because generally speaking, administrators who come out of the classroom are very successful at everything they do. And as an administrator, you're going to fail. And I think preparing them for that as a good thing is important, because I think we have a culture where there's the margin for error is smaller and smaller in society with social media. But we have to build cultures, and I think it starts at the university, where you need to try things. What works 25 years ago is not working today. And what are you prepared to do to make a difference and to lead and learn from that? And I think professionally it's tough when you have to take those risks. So I think anything that can be done at the university level is say it's okay to take those risks, because that's the only way we're going to get better. And even when failure happens, and in Perrysburg it happens daily, we want to learn from those situations and be better.
Okay. Wonderful. We have about 10 minutes before the break, so I'm going to throw hopefully a relatively easy one that could be answered within that time frame. on the sheet, I had list the top 5 highest educational priorities for your district. How about we amend that to give us the top 3 educational priorities for your district, just so we get a sense of what really is most important for you. And then when we come back from the break, we can either expand on that or we can take questions related to that. All right? So give that a quick thought. If you have that already in mind, go right ahead.
We just engaged in strategic planning last year, so this is an easy one. Equity, equity, equity. It's the umbrella over academics, whether it's reading and math, so there are separate goals for that, so we'll count that as 2, right? And then equity is the umbrella under social emotional. As was alluded to by Adam, it doesn't matter what a student's background is, and in Maumee, I'm sure we all have this, we have students from all types of different backgrounds, and that doesn't matter, but what matters is what support does each student need to be successful, both in the classroom and outside the classroom. So we're really, and we're learning, quite frankly. We are not experts with this, but we need to make sure that we are providing equitable services, not equal, but equitable services for all of our students.
I think for us, very similar. Opening day, we talked about the fact that we have 27 students in a class. And as a school district, we do exceptionally well with 25 of those 27 students. But what about number 26 and number 27? What are we doing for those students? How are we meeting them where they are today? And I think what we can do as an organization, and our focus has been, let's provide teachers with those lenses to be able to see those 26 and number 27. Because our mission is to ensure all students achieve their greatest potential, all. And if we're serious about that, we have to make it work for number 26 and number 27. So that's been a primary focus of ours. And of course, beating Maumee is our other one. So.
He does look great in purple, doesn't he?
Oh my gosh. Hey, we can help you out with that, Tom.
Thanks.
Well, I'll just go next if you want.
Sure.
Our heavy emphasis this year is really on our continued growth of our staff culture, and we're moving down this Focus 3. If you don't know Tim Kite or any of that stuff, look it up and look at the Focus 3 website. It's an incredible set of tools to help grow culture, but so that's huge. That's our number one priority right now because that filters then down to kids. Student engagement and fun is critical. Kids have choices. I said that before. We've got to make our school environment a place that kids want to be and their parents want to be. And that there's a million things to that. And third, we need to increase our rigor in Oregon City Schools. One of our we've actually done some deep assessments and data collecting. We're great at we're really strong with caring about kids, wanting kids to be, but we're soft because we care about kids so much. We take it easy on them a little bit. And we've got some data to prove that now. And so we're especially at our high school, and we're looking at that. It's like, but we got to push them. We got to push them harder. And so those are our focuses.
I'll jump in. I have all 5, but I'm gonna give you a few that just come right out off the sheet. I think one, we're starting to grow more and more awareness of, and that's early childhood education. I've been on a campaign crusade since day one coming into the position. The best intervention is prevention. If kids are starting 6 years of age into education, and some environmental factors is that in our district, when we do the crawl assessment, which is kindergarten readiness assessment, is that our kids, 80% of them come in not ready. So, meaning that you got 80% of your students coming into a situation needing intervention, 60% of the 80% need intensive intervention and already showing signs of needing special needs and special care, which ultimately is a travesty because if education is the greatest equalizer in America, there's nothing equal when kids are coming to the starting gate already behind. So right now, I'm a little bit fatigued because Dr. Brady sends me 5 articles at midnight, wants all of them read within the last 5 minutes. I'm like, Dr. Brady, I got to get up in the morning to do this panel discussion. But it's on a daily basis, and I started off with him in early childhood, and every day since that time, I've got an article after an article and after article, which attests to there's more than enough research that says the inequity that is happening across this country. Lyndon Johnson declared war on poverty, and one of his great initiatives was Head Start, wraparound services. But then you have individuals say, well, that phases out in the 3rd grade. You didn't do the root analysis, because root analysis said if you continued wraparound care, kindergarten first and second and third, you would have the same result that happened in early childhood, because wraparound care happened then it fell off kindergarten first, second, and third. Again, address the problem. Because if you're going to address poverty, you got to address education. And within education, there's a system that's faulty when kids are waiting for 6 years, which ultimately 95% of the brain, neurologically, has already began its developmental phases. Already developed. In other words, they take a child 4 years of age, they've already developed a personality. Like I told people, some they already declared they no longer eat vegetables, right? But again, that's that personality that comes out. But early childhood has been a big one, and working with the city and going universal pre-K, as well as the Head Start initiative and all these other factors, is that we begin to address these students within that, not just cognitively, physically, as well as mental. At the same time, we're now getting more money because ultimately we're seeing all these kids with lead levels that are high levels that lead to other problems, physically as well as mentally. So again, early childhood is a big one. Our whole mission and visions around college and career readiness. And so just as I tell people that I refuse, in essence, that education, we shouldn't launch another traditional school, meaning build another traditional school. Now we've been moving to magnet and academy approaches that are thematically focused on particular career as well as educational choices that kids live within the space, freshmen or 7 through 12, of their career choice. So in other words, we talk about Toledo Technology Academies and engineering school. Those kids are exposed to the highest levels of rigor of mathematics as well as engineering, and that's what they segment off to. Toledo Early College, which is a partner with the University of Toledo. Those kids ultimately achieve anywhere between 60, 90, close to past 100 credit hours of college credit upon graduation. We're excited that we have now going to move them to the Driscoll Center, which ultimately will be their new home. But again, it's a focus school. It's not for everyone. And so we continue to broaden it. We had Jones Leadership Academy of Business. Those who are interested in business can go into the business school. This is what it's there for. Aerospace and Natural Science, it's a new school. We're not going to build a new structure on its own silo. We put the school at the airport. If you're going to learn about planes and such forth, you need to be where you can learn the most about it, and that's at the airport. So the school is at the airport. Next 2020 is going to be the Pre-Med High School of Toledo. Where do you think that's going to be at? The hospital, right? Kids from 7 through 12 will be exposed to everyday hospital reality, the culture of hospitals, be able to begin to shatter. First period may be English 1, second period you may be in brain surgery, observing what's going on. Pharmacology, pre-med, pre-bioengineering, all those factors happen within that location, as well as guest lecturing, internships, and all those other things within it. But at the same time, the bilingual school and all the other things we continue to launch may not service everyone, but it serves someone. And so when someone says, well, Dr. Durant, how did you guys increase your African-American graduation rate by 20%? I said, it's not because we looked at every African-American and said, what are we going to do with you? We brought in the reality of opportunity that ultimately reflected everyone, and they were interested, and minority as well as those in general education were interested, that drew their attention to say, this is why I come to school. So if it's pre-med, or if it's the auto mechanic, like the young man who said in the carpentry program, he said, I didn't think I was good in anything until Mr. Materney showed me a way of carpentry that now I feel like I'm an expert in something. So this man saved my life. So again, teachers are saving lives every day because they're exposing their level of expertise and curriculum in a classroom that kids are identifying and developing a relationship with. And guess what? They see a life for them beyond high school. So those are kind of some of the things in just developing those pathways where kids seamlessly go through that ultimately walk out ready for career entry. And so we're excited to continue to do that, but it's partnership with the University of Toledo, ProMedica, and all these other industries that make our reality as superintendent much easier, particularly when we don't have the funding to do it. They help come in and put that funding together to make it happen.
I'm going to cut everyone off. For those who haven't responded, you can when we come back from the break. I want to honor that. So please take a break. We'll come back at, we'll try to keep on time at 10:15. We'll get the final top three, and then open the conversation, questions, and so forth. So enjoy the quick break.
I saw the
Okay, I think we have everyone up. I did want to make a short announcement, and then we'll get back with getting the priorities, and then we have basically open question format. Kelly Myers was not able to attend today. She gave her condolences. A significant event came up in her district, and she obviously needed to take care of it. That's the reality of being a superintendent, as everyone up here can attest to. So she did obviously want me to convey that she very much wanted to be here and just could not. So maybe some other time, if we get a chance and do something like this again, Kelly will be able to put us in her plans. So, okay, for those who did not finish the top 3 priorities, who did we have? Adam, you want to? Okay.
You want me to jump in?
Sure.
Okay. For Ottawa Hills this year, big focus for us in our district. High achieving district, students who do very well, staff that is well trained, but sometimes I think a focus in education can be a lot on what and how. And for us this year, we're talking about really getting back to why we do what we do and finding that why in us to drive what we do each day for kids. So that's our theme this year, and we're excited about it. Big piece for us is challenging and inspiring our students to achieve at all levels and really making sure we're focusing on all students' needs. And then lastly, just increased innovation and encouraging our staff and students that any idea is a good idea. Bring it forward. It may be new and out of the box, but let's talk about it. And really looking for those innovative ways to move our district forward. So we're excited about those this year.
So Washington Local, it's not really any secret that they've been kind of through the ringer. They've had more than their share of turn in the barrel, I think, at this point. So really, with 15 days on the job, what we've been talking about.
Come on, Katie, you don't have those.
With my inside team and principals has been caring for each other so we can care for our students because we care about their future. I think you can't do a whole lot more than that when you start, on their first day was my first day. So we stood up together and we talked a lot about honoring the things in the past that made Washington Local what they are. They've got a better brand than almost any place I've ever been. Unbelievable spirit, families that are generational, that work in the district, that live in the district, just a sense of community pride like I've really never quite experienced. And I've been some pretty amazing places, but this is really something special. And I think just reminding them that they are who they are. And let's dust our jeans off. I just did share that I had to buy my first pair of jeans. I didn't actually own jeans. I did. So really that is our focus. We need some healing, but we have to keep our focus on our kids, and then I think the rest of it for this year will take care of itself. We can have the kinds of conversations once they feel like they're safe and they're cared for, and they can take those kinds of risks. The rest will come later. Right now, we're just going to heal.
I think I'm left, and since Mr. Hostler mentioned that his first priority was to beat Maumee, our first priority really is to beat Perrysburg, so, which is pretty easy. So,
There it is.
So there's goal 1. In all seriousness, though, a lot of the same things that you're hearing here in our district right now. We're having the conversations like Simon Sinek meant, in his TED Talk about the why, the how, the what. And that's driving our conversations about what do we need to do for the future to prepare our students for success upon graduation, both from a personal perspective, academic perspective, but also be an active member of our society. And what does that look like? How do we get them there? From 21st century learning skills to personal skills to strong academic knowledge that they need to possess. And so forth. What's that foundation of success look like in our district? I've been focusing on the fact that our second graders will graduate in 2030. When I mention that to our staff or to our administrators, they kind of think, oh wow, 2030, that's far off. But when you associate a student with that, a second grade student, it starts to get a little bit more concrete to them. And so that's really been our discussions of how do we move our district forward. We've worked with Battelle for Kids to develop a portrait of a general, which outlines some where we worked with our community and stakeholders to develop some key characteristics that we're looking for within our students to make them successful upon graduation. So that's really been our focus over the last few years.
Okay, now it's the magic time where everyone can ask questions from the audience. So, oh, I got hands up here. Feel like the price is right.
Hi there. I'm Dr. Jason Cox. I'm the head of the art education program here at the University of Toledo. Thanks very much for coming here today. So you talked a lot about personal growth and communal growth and social growth, innovation. I can also say that there's scads of people wearing blue and gold today, and that's great. So everybody understands the importance of the visual. I'd like to know, in view of the fact that economic models suggest experience design is central to the economy, and that end-user design is very, very important, turning STEM into STEAM, what you're doing in order to make the arts integral in your educational communities.
So I'll take it. If you notice, we've been launching STEM plus M schools over the last several years. So right now we're up to 4 and launching a 5th one. We're going to put one in every learning community. And so right now we're looking for a consultant to now come in and be part of the district who's going to implement the A part of it to develop the STEAM approach. So to add the art into the element of what it looks like in the science, technology, engineering, math, and medicine, what that world looks like. At the same time, so if you heard me talk about magnet schools, so you can imagine I'm developing a school that has no boundaries and kids are coming to the school, and then you got traditional schools. And the traditional schools, you can imagine they feel left out. So what we've done is launch academies within the school. So 2 construction academies, and now we're going to be launching a performing arts academy within one of our high schools. That'll spend half of the day at the school and half of the day at the art museum in the University of Toledo Center that they have over there. So again, we appreciate and understand the importance of art. At the same time, we also recognize that we're adding someone who's going to help us, because in our construction academy at Wade High School, we added 19 welding bays. If you know anything about welding, artists are very great and become very great welders. And so how do you add an artistic approach where an artistic eye that begin to perfect someone who's looking to become a welder, which is a huge need in the local economy as well as across the country. And so we're excited to be able to do that. But so his point about implementing art into it is great in regard to, in essence, of really hitting all the intelligence of a child's mind. And developing them, but more importantly, it really expands and broadens the knowledge of understanding of science, technology, engineering, math, and medicine when art is included within it. So, great point.
Yeah. And similar, we're taking the approach of looking at what our teachers have as part of an art education program and how can we enhance that. So working with the University of Toledo, they came over and spent a day with the engineering program, came over and spent a day working with some architecture. And then we've began to develop courses. We have our first one at the high school this year where we have a science teacher, an art teacher, and a computer science teacher working together to team teach to make sure they can take students through the whole design process from all of those different perspectives. And we look forward to really expanding that in the future. It's more of a pilot this year. And that's in addition to we've installed STEAM centers in all of our buildings as well. And we're finding it's a great before and after school program, as well as making opportunities available during the day for our kids, but really to have that time to really truly explore and engage and go through that process. I think it's nice for students to have an hour and a half block of time. And we've been fortunate, our staff, once we explained the concept and what we wanted to accomplish with our students, staff have volunteered, stepped up, and provided what we need to supervise our kids so that they can engage with those activities.
I would agree. I think we're doing some of the same things that you're hearing from his 2 esteemed colleagues here at the table. When we, I think of 2 examples that pop out in my head in our district. One is at Waterville Primary, one of our elementary building, or our primary buildings. It's designated as a STEM building by the Ohio Department of Education, but I would tell you it's a STEAM building. That art class does not look like a traditional primary school art class. It's basically a STEM class or STEAM class, and it was motivated by the instructor to take it there, and it's an awesome experience for those kids. We have a music teacher at the high school and junior high who is using coding to teach music, and it's an interesting experience for kids. Those are two things that just kind of pop out to me, that where there's of the arts and how it's blending into that experience for our students.
And I appreciate the question, Jason, and I think it's an important, I think from an individual student perspective, I think we're fortunate in Perrysburg that it's really part of our DNA. So the fine and performing arts are just part of the culture that we have, and I think we've had gifted teachers that have made it that way. I have a son who's a senior at Perrysburg High School. He's not artistic. He's taken 2 drama courses. He took an intro to art, and this year he has ceramics. He came home last night and he says, I think I'm going to throw tomorrow. So, and he's not talking about discus or shot. So, and that's and for a kid who is kind of gravitated towards athletics, to be plugged in, to be interested, and I think that's, really a success, because that would be the last person you would think that would do that. We hired a development director. I know a number of other districts here also have development officers that are working in the district, just like the universities. And we kicked off a campaign for the arts in Perrysburg because it is that important. And with the budget ups and downs that we experienced, we wanted to make sure that there was funding available to keep that kind of DNA intact in Perrysburg. We have, we're here in the Grogan Room, I think, in Savage Arena, and there's all kinds of money that's available for athletics, and people want to donate. They line up to do it. And what we've challenged our community is, we say that we're a special place because of the arts. Let's put our money where our mouth is. And so we've been working hard to kind of find those connections. And what's great about the stories that we're hearing are the engineers, and I think Dr. Durant and Dr. Kramer talked about this, the kids who are part of that art program and love it, but then go on to do that other thing. But they know that this is where they found that connection, that place, and that made a difference to them, even though they're not in show choir as an engineer. But we're finding those people wanting to come and give. And so we need to protect that, because with the struggles that we face, the arts are often that vulnerable place. But I think you're hearing more and more how important the arts are, and our business partners are certainly hearing about that need for creativity and the expression and all the appreciation. So just a little bit different angle in terms of that.
Just a slightly different angle, but to build on what all of my esteemed colleagues have already said, it's an educator that's really important here. The right teacher in the classroom can make all the difference. We need you to encourage your teachers to be that innovative. And because honestly, when I look at where in Perrysburg where we were successful, it's because there was a teacher that had a great idea, and now that's a course. Or it's a whole model curriculum. So I think that's a really, encouraging that curiosity and pushing the limits. I mean, I will say that most of those teachers are the ones that push the limits a little bit, but I think I can speak in Perrysburg, we really benefited from that, because we really grew because they were pushing us, and those are the kinds of teachers we want to hire.
Yeah, I mean, Oregon's real big, also community within the arts. We've added just in the last 2 years 5 additional teachers, or we've more or less shifted them around through some enrollment things, but we have 3 new STEAM labs, teachers dedicated to the elementaries, along with the labs through private donations that we've received for those makerspace and the equipment. That it's been unbelievably fun. We've called it the STEAM because there's so much art going on. It's incredible. So we're very excited. We just added one to our intermediate this year because it was so successful at the elementary. And then on the performing arts side, we're embarking on a facilities project to turn our old warehouse into a performing arts studio. One of the problems we have is space and access for our kids who really want to grow and perform. Dance studio, a place to do things. We don't have a lot of space, so we've got to figure out a space. So very excited about it. It's our focus this year, one of our focuses this year, and yeah, it's definitely growing. I mean, it's out there because and it's all about fun for kids, right? It's all about experiences for kids that I keep talking about. Schools got to provide that. You can't let that go. We did for a while, but now it's back.
And to piggyback on that, I think just with the pressure so much that our kids have on test scores and doing well and math and reading and all of those things, to be able to have the arts as a break, as a time to just be creative and explore many of their curiosities and what they want to have is huge in our school district in Ottawa Hills, and the programs we offer are just as important in those areas as any of the others, and we make that a strong point within our community.
Tim Brakel, music education, but this is not an arts-related question. One of the things that I truly believe in as a teaching philosophy is that we can't prepare our students for our past, but for their future. And one of the things that I've noticed is a lot of school districts moving toward at least some implementation of some form of understanding by design, in part as they're moving toward the guaranteed viable curriculum and how you do transferable skills. And I wondered by what degrees maybe those principles, either explicitly or implicitly, have impacted your district.
Stump the panel. No.
Maybe if you could clarify a little bit what you're asking. You used a lot of big doctoral words. I got a little lost.
Well, there's been an emphasis in lots of ways of trying to narrow the curriculum to go deeper in a subject and be able to use those transferable skills and not cover as broad of material, but to get a real understanding so that a student who might be at elementary school X would have the same curriculum and same understanding and knowledge as a student from Z school, especially as they're moving on into the junior high and high school and on into the career workforce.
And just bringing in consistency a little bit to what, rather than that kind of local school idea and bringing it across, we have had a lot of conversation over the last several years about, and we have movement within our district, we're seeing more movement within our district, and if I'm answering the question a little bit, and the commonalities that we have to have, at least among our elementary schools, because we just have 3 that people move around in, is critical. And there's a lot of, in our district, a lot of history and tradition within those schools, and sometimes it's hard to break away from some of those histories and traditions and folks that have been there for a long time to change a way something is done. But with that being said, the way we've moved to technology has really helped in a way, because we're purchasing things. Textbooks are not necessarily always textbooks. They're online, and we have a lot of consistency, and we've forced ourselves to come together and have more collaboration amongst those folks, because it's critical because nowadays everybody communicates. So one parent talks to another parent, and if there's 3 completely different experiences and one's kind of better, I guess. So I don't know if I'm tackling the question, but we hope that whatever skills our kids, they can transfer to wherever they go, whether they move out and go to another district or to another school, because there's some core things that every kid has to know. So
I think we're very fortunate in Northwest Ohio. The districts work well together. We had a grant where the districts came together and wrote some online curriculum, and there's a lot of cross-pollination that happens. I mean, when we hear something happening in most of the districts over there, except, no, just kidding, Mr. Hostler. No, we send our teachers out to learn, because we call it the guaranteed and viable curriculum, to ensure what is every student getting, both horizontally and vertically. And so that is constant work every time we have a course or revision come up that we engage in, both at the local level within our district, but I think our districts do a nice job of then collaborating with one another to say, okay, how did you get X result in this specific standard, or who is struggling with this, or what are some ideas, and really sharing those best practices. We're very fortunate having superintendent colleagues in other parts of the state. I can say that they're not as well connected, and I just feel fortunate that we have the relationships we do here in Northwest Ohio.
As a part of that program, the teachers and staff had conversations in regards to depth of knowledge of the content, and I think one of the benefits was that collaborative discussions that took place during that process to understand that we can't just skim over the material and you know, what higher level learning can take place in the classroom based on the content. There's still, though, the emphasis from the state, whether it be from the Ohio Department of Education or primarily from the legislature, because they're really making the decisions now about what we're doing in our schools, is more. It's not about depth of knowledge, it's about what else can we do, unfortunately, in some cases. So that's kind of the reality of the world we're living in right now.
Just to add, within our district, we have within our own inner mainframe, teachers have access that we use our curriculum people to develop the mapping and the alignment, as well as, in essence, a generality of the pacing. So it gives a good sense, in essence, through the course of the year, you should be somewhere within the standard that you should cover. One of the things that we do, that we've added, and we're in the process of doing it now, is we're examining all the item analysis per grade level to be able to determine which item and standard need to be more in depth and slowing that pace down throughout the year. So we had to focus on math, and then the various grade levels are going to have a different item analysis they're going to focus on based on the students' results from the previous assessment period. So kind of helps within that, and what we call is called TBT, which is teacher-based team, which is grade level meeting, is those individuals are having those dialogues about where they're at in regard to the standards, at the same time are helping others who are understanding the mapping as well as the pacing, or giving best strategies, in essence, of how you're able to engage the standard in a more effective way with the students, that you're progressing at a pace that ultimately allows you to cover, in essence, of the amount of standards that's necessary.
Okay, next question.
Dave McMurray, doctoral student here at the university. I want to go back to mental health, and you know, we know that the mental health of students is very important, but for teachers, they're on the front line, and their mental wellness has a direct effect on the mental wellness of students. So my question is, what are the districts doing to address directly to the mental wellness of the teachers and all staff, and or what needs to be done?
I think the first step is trying to create that positive culture and climate within your district. And what are we doing as administrators to facilitate that with our staff? You know, I tell every employee that comes in to our district that not every day is going to be a party, but the expectation is that you're positive, and you're positive with each other, and we work towards that. And we do targeted activities to make sure that we're trying to create that positive atmosphere in our buildings and our departments throughout the district, not just with teaching staff, but with all staff. So we have a large emphasis on that, to do that. We also have support teams in each building, in each department now, that not only focus on student positive mental health, but also our staff, and what are we doing to not only be proactive, but understand the warning signs of our fellow staff members, and understanding then that in these teams, what can we do to help these individuals to deal with the situations that they're dealing with.
I think for staff, Dave, I think we struggle with that, frankly. There's a lot of factors. You're dealing with adults and employee contracts, and being able to connect with somebody who might be struggling. And I think we talked earlier about having principals and leaders that have that kind of courage to have those conversations. I think on the student side, we're much further along in terms of what we can do to help. But when it comes to staff, I think, speaking for our district, I think we struggle with that still. I mean, we identify, we help, we have the, here's a card to get, to talk to somebody, but, we're still pretty closed, I think, in what we do. I think that's an area that we need to grow in. In Perrysburg, last year, we have a pupil services department that handles 504s and special education and all those kinds of things. And we were just talking earlier about how we pulled a person out of that and is a director of wellness, because we wanted focus on that well-being for students, somebody who's focusing just on that piece. And that has really, allowed a spotlight to show on those student challenges and issues. And we're looking at things in equity and mental health that we haven't done before, because it's always been kind of tucked in this other area. So we've done that. But with staff, it's an area I think we try to address. I think we're going to need to address it with the turnover that we're seeing. And I don't from our perspective, I don't think we're where we need to be, and I think we have to have a conversation about it. Good question.
I'll add.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Ron.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, go.
I'm just going to add in essence of one, because one of the things I've always expressed is that we always try to say that as professionals you leave your personal life at the door, and I tell people that's just not a reality. That we're humans and individuals will bring some sense of their home reality to the work reality. So we addressed it in multifacets in essence of part of the culture climate, but we had developed our own health and wellness. We have now our own fitness center, which we got from the YMCA as part of the collaboration of building our board out. So they now engage with the collegiality of fitness within that. At the same time, we provide other opportunities such as we used the University of Toledo that provides mindfulness, which is another form of yoga. And you'd be surprised how many staff are engaged in that, but we started off with the student body, and the staff said, we want it too. And next thing you know, they're in there doing this with the kids, the whole deal. And they're into it. But they come back out, because at the end of the day, whatever helps you, you got to provide a variety. And the other one is we do Bible study with the staff. So you'd be surprised the testimonial that I hear about teachers who said, you know what, I was bringing my demons to school, and I was taking it out on children in essence of relationship. The study within that had allowed them to collegiality break themselves, what they call deliverance, and said, now I respond and love my kids more than any other time I've ever done in my career. So again, it's those realities, and at the same time, as superintendent, you take those stands. Meaning, some people say, well, the separation of church and state, there's no such thing as law within that. It's an expression of a president who once made the notion to that. But at the same time, if you do it in the equity way, you can provide those opportunities within your building just you provide any other opportunity. And you'd be surprised how many staff have truly, because you feel that sense of they're being on a grind on a day-to-day in the classroom, and then turn around and go home and deal with their home reality. At some point, there's a breaking point. And the other one is that, I meet with each of the principals twice a year, so I schedule that, and it's an exhausting time to do because there's 50 of them. But, it's truly a good sense of, one, working with them because of the same leadership needed. But at the same time, having a conversation with them that every principal or leader should have a good sense within their building when the staff is at a breaking point. And I always knew that as a principal. So I always knew what that was, got with my building leadership team and said, I will take the students and give them a 3-hour break, and then I will PTO, and we're going to do raffles and that whole deal to give you that breaking point, because there's a stretch in a year that there's a long gap before the next vacation, and staff are at each other like this. I mean, if you've been in the building, you understand that, and so it's usually around before the holiday, and then that stretch between after the Christmas holiday. But again, it's knowing those points and understanding that you have to have a social IQ of understanding those around you ultimately need some sense of relief and break, as well as what you can do to provide all opportunity for them.
I'll just say as well that I think we have to always remember that we can't forget the staff, and we can do better with that. I think when we talk about mental health of our students and what's coming into our classrooms, that's directly impacting our teachers and their mental health with what they're dealing with those cases, but also the pressures that they have already, and then to have that. So I do think we can do better. In my prior district, Sylvania, they've taken some great steps towards that. There's 3 professional development days a year. Mental health was a big focus last year, still is in that district. And what we did was build in some mental health support and wellness activities for the staff, not just talking about the kids, but actually a day where staff got to choose different activities, and they were all geared around wellness or helping them feel better or giving them a break in some way, which is whether it's yoga, dietitian classes, just all kinds of neat things. And for a day, they got to choose, and throughout one of the high schools went to different classes that were truly focused on them. And if we thought if we could do that, then the impact then rolls down to the students if they're feeling better and really showing them some of those opportunities. So Sylvania's gotten a real good start on that, and I believe it's still building on it this year. Just making sure that time is there for them, not just the kids.
I think in general, we stress people out.
Yeah, that's the theme.
In
We
summary.
show up at somebody's door, even if it's a good thing, we create anxiety just by looking at them. So we might not be the right crowd to ask, so we're fully aware of that.
And that's the first step to recovery. Okay, final.
People are better off in our district today because we're all here when it comes to mental.
Especially on a Friday.
There's no stress in our districts today.
Yeah, okay, you said it, not me. This might be our final question. I'm trying to be mindful of your time, so we'll see, but let's go from here.
Hello, I'm Florian Voigt. I'm a professor for educational psychology and peace education. And I was wondering about civic readiness, how students apply all the good stuff that they learn in school to become active and productive citizens. So maybe you could talk a little bit about what you do in the schools and where your needs are in that area.
Well, maybe I'll just jump in because it's all kind of the same question in a way where I'm so glad to hear the questions that really you understand what we're dealing with, and I'm sure you're dealing with all your students. I mean, they're just a little bit older. So, but they're still dealing with all this, right? I mean, it's not changed. And going to college is one of the scariest things for some kids that ever could be, leaving home for the first time and all that kind of stuff. But what do you do with kids, right? There's a whole bunch of packaged programs, right? So one of the big ones, in all schools is this positive behavior intervention supports, right? So that's going on, I think, probably in all our buildings, and it's a way to build those types of things every single day, have consistency within the buildings and all that kind of stuff. So super excited about that. We're full into that. But I'll tell you, I don't know if it's the answer, and I don't know what the answer is, but what I do know, and I've said this a little bit earlier about this program, and I'm going to preach a little bit if I can have just 2 seconds on it, because this Focus 3, I'm going to say it again, with Tim Kite, and does anybody know anything about that? Anybody whatsoever? One person.
Well, that's because I Googled it during the break.
Okay. So, if you're an Ohio State fan, and that's fine, and I know Urban, didn't he just come talk to football here at Toledo? Not all that long ago, I thought, because it was in the news that it wasn't BG, it was Toledo. Yeah. So, anyways, he implemented this thing with this guy named Tim Kite, and Focus 3 is all about R Factor, and it's all about teaching a set of tools, and it's a whole kind of curriculum / mindset that this Tim Kite has been teaching for 40 years. It's just now in the last 4 or 5 years getting into our worlds, education. It's all been collegiate and business. Right? How do you turn the culture around? Well, culture isn't something any one of us can turn around. Culture is individual. The only way your department cultures are going to get better is if each one of you apply and behave in a way to get positive culture. Okay? So there's a whole lot to it. So E plus R equals O is all over our district. We're in the first year. We're being trained. We're going through it. And I'm telling you, just in these last 6 months that we've been doing this, I have had more staff come up to me and said, this has been the best mental health, the best thing ever, life-changing types of stuff, because it totally transforms the way you think. It's personal. It's all about personal growth. It's not about anything else but you and helping you be a best version of you each and every day. And I'm telling you, if you get into it and knowing what you do for a profession, you will be hooked immediately. I haven't found hardly anyone that doesn't get hooked immediately on the idea behind it. Now, it's systematic, and you've got to train it in the right way. So the goal is to do our staff, go through all our trainer staff. Started at 25, and we build a culture playbook, right? Then when you go, you have to have a kind of a line, and above and below the line is this big concept. There's above the line behavior and below the line behavior. We're going to go through this series of trainings, and then hopefully within the next year and a half, you take this to kids. I mean, at the end of the day, this is all about getting our minds right to then get the kids' minds right. I mean, that's what it's about. And Port Clinton's doing it, and their superintendent are training us. And there's Spot Eastwood's doing it. We've talked a little bit in this group about it. I want to share it with them because I'm so excited about it. I want all people and kids to experience what I'm experiencing. I just had a meeting with 80 of my staff yesterday that came back from 4 to 5. They didn't have to. And just wanted to talk about it for an hour. I mean, it's that impactful. And I had a lady say to me, 25, almost probably over 30-year veteran, say this is the first time in her life, her mind's been clear and not been a bunch of junk in there, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, she's a deep thinker, she's a worrier, she's a negative self-talker, right? Which a lot of us are. First time in her life, she's letting all that go, and it gives her permission to let it go. Anyways, so you ask what we're doing, going back to your question, sorry, but I wanted to get this in before we leave today. Because it's so exciting for me, so I want to share it with you.
Hal, are you making money on this?
No, I am not. I'm paying money for this, just so you know. Not a lot, but I'm paying money for this. I'm telling you, it's personal. Who doesn't want to get better every day? Isn't that why you're here today? You want to help everyone get better today.
Absolutely.
Right? That's what we're here for. So I don't know if that answered your question
Okay.
at all, but it was good. I'm excited.
I might cut this off because, one, I have a thought I want to share with everyone, and then I want to give everyone on the panel, 60, 90, 120 seconds on, basic summary encapsulation. What do you want us to walk away with from your perspective? And this is Dr. Brady's brainchild. He took me aside and said, what if we created a social media page where we have a situation where we can continue this kind of dialogue and blogging, so to speak, of issues and such that might be coming up. So I'm going to throw that out as if you all would be willing to kind of have a two-way conversation virtually after this meeting. Maybe that's a possibility, and if you all are okay with that, we could definitely set that up and then just see how that works. So just give that some thought. So 3 minutes. What do you want us to, take away, or what's the biggest aha that we should have in regards to today's conversation from your perspective? Adam, I'll start with you.
Okay. First of all, I just want to say thank you for what you do and the students that you train and all the hard work you put in to make sure they're successful. As a former University of Toledo Rockets student for my bachelor's and master's, woohoo, go Rockets. I feel the experience I had here was unbelievable, and it helped me to get to where I'm at today. So you guys do important work. I think the piece I want to share is to make sure that your students are always really connected to the trenches and that they really get what's happening in the school districts that they're working in and get those experiences, and I think somebody said it earlier than later, to make sure they really are meant for this field. This field is maybe a lot different than what they think it is because maybe their parents were teachers or whatever. It has changed so much, and all the topics we talked about today, you can feel that. And it's really important that those students get out early and realize that and have those experiences so they can be better when they do graduate and get that first job. And I think any of us will tell you up here that our district's doors are wide open to welcome them. So many of the University of Toledo students that are in our district now are just wonderful, and I think we want to provide them those opportunities to come out and get the experiences early throughout their time here, whether they're working on bachelor's, master's, whatever. So thank you.
This is great to hear.
Yep.
Hal?
Hey, thank you. Yeah, again, I appreciate the connections. When we've met, you've stayed connected. This is a fantastic group. I think will help any one of you, or hopefully you could. I would like to invite any of you to come out to Oregon. Sometimes going over the river is a little scary for people, but it's come on over. There's some good, it's good and safe over there. Come on over. It's fun. So come on out and visit us. Our doors are open. We want to share what we're doing because all of us have fantastic things that are going on that no one knows. So come see it. So help, because we have to, as a profession. Like the whole day was mental health, right? Why is that? There's more stress going on in our world than probably ever before. Like every day somebody's criticizing us. Every day we have to solve a problem, right? Collectively, you guys, us guys, we all have to do something because it's a people business. So, but stay positive because once you lose that, that's when everything spirals down. And when the culture's terrible, you just go nowhere. So thank you for the invite.
Our pleasure. Our pleasure. Katie?
Thanks for inviting the rookie, not kicking her off your panel here. I think one of the things I'm thinking about as I look out at the people who are preparing the people that we will hire shortly and in desperate need is when I talk to teachers the first time, I think they're sometimes surprised that the first thing I'm looking for is what kind of relationship will you build with your students. And I think they're so worried about, I'm going to pass my math test. Am I going to be able to teach Algebra 1 to kids that are behind? You can't teach anything until you build a relationship with that student. And so spending time on relationships, it's why we're here today, is to build relationships with you. We can learn from each other when we have a relationship with each other. So working on that, and we'll continue to work on our relationship with you as well.
That sounds great. Tom?
Thanks again for organizing this. And I think, from my perspective, I think the relationship with the College of Education is probably better than it's been in my 13 years. We have a small group of superintendents, part of a larger group, and we invite the deans. So monthly, the dean is sitting shoulder to shoulder with superintendents, many at the table here, talking about issues. But I wanted to kind of take what we've talked today, and as I've thought about it, so I went to the University of Toledo as well. And I don't talk about this too much, but this part I do. I was a knucklehead as a freshman. I was a mess. And they were on quarters, and I got into trouble off campus, and my grades were terrible at the end of my freshman year. And my parents were like, you need to go to college. You're the first one to go to college. We're not going to pay for it anymore. So that's why it took me 6 years to get my undergrad degree. So I was really struggling. And I think this is the theme that we have today. And somebody took some time. And I'm not a very emotional person. I've never talked about this, so Katie just told me. So, but Mary Jo Henning was a professor. And I don't know how many of you know her. And I was like, should I go to college or not? I think I had a job like at General Mills. I made a lot of money, and do I want to do this or not? And she could see that I was struggling. She pulled me in her office. She became my advisor. Probably, she passed away, but if she heard, she probably wouldn't even remember the conversation or probably remember me, other than I was a knucklehead. But that moment, that encounter, that caring, that kindness, you have that available to you with students still. And we get the benefit because we have these great relationships with kids every single day, but you have that power too. And like Katie just said, it's that personal connection. You have that ability to do that. And it made it, I wouldn't be here today if Mary Jo didn't pull me aside and say, you can do this, straighten up, I'll help you, we'll get through this. And that's what it's all about. And that's what makes, I think, our districts good, and I think you have a theme here among all of us to a person. I think we're very much focused on that individual attention and doing what's right for every single kid. So, but thank you for that, and appreciate being here, so thanks.
Wonderful. Jim?
Thank you again for having us. I think what you're hearing is the personal side of what we do with students is just as important as the academic side, and trying to develop skills within them to be successful. I think is critical, and working with our students that are in college to come and work for us and in our schools, I think emphasizing the fact that those relationships are critical to the students' success. They need advocates for them in the classroom, and our teachers are there to help, and others as well. And so what we all can do to emphasize that with them. Also, I want to emphasize the fact that when I'm interviewing people, we're looking at personality and the ability to develop those relationships. But also, do they have their own growth mindset that's going to lead to their success? Because we've talked about the challenges of what we face in the classrooms or in our buildings. Do they have the ability to withstand the ups and downs, the hills and valleys that will be in front of them? And we put them through an assessment when we're interviewing them now, and trying to determine where are they at with that. So it's critical to their success and to our overall success and understanding that. So
Wonderful. Todd?
Just once again, thanks for the opportunity to be here. I have to thank all of you for what you do. I had the chance to teach adjunct a year ago It was at the for the University of Findlay, but I have to admit I didn't have a great appreciation. I thought, well, these are all people who want to be there, right? So this isn't like K-12 education. They've signed up and they've paid a sizable bill to be here. Oh boy. So once again, thank you for what you do. And when they called this year, I said no, thank you. But hopefully you took away that we're all willing to engage in conversations, especially if they're focused on ways to improve what we provide for our staff or for our students. And if you have ideas or things you want to try, as also was mentioned, we're willing to take some risks as long as we are going to measure those outcomes, see if it works, and then fall forward, as I think Mr. Hostler said. And the other thing, I did go to the university to the south of here. And I will tell you, if you can provide those authentic experiences for students, and not to, since they're probably not here, but there's probably other people with degrees from here that they're here. But my experience, my authentic experience to become an administrator was I did a binder review of the staff handbook and spent my internship hours completing that. It was very well tabbed, it was organized, and every staff member received one at the end of my experience. And then when I received that first call and had the opportunity, I went, oh wow, there's a lot more to this. So any way we can engage and help provide those authentic experiences, whether it's for administration prep or teacher prep, please let us know, because we're all in this for the same reason.
Excellent. Romulus.
Again, I just want to echo the other superintendents. One, again, thank you for this opportunity to have this panel and to have these discussions. Unlike him, I got all 3 degrees here at the University of Toledo, and I'm happy to have every one of them. That's right. This is intentional. This gold and blue, this is intentional. Right? I hope you recognize that. And every time I'm on University of Toledo campus, they will say Dr. Durant is always in gold and blue. But again, I learned that civility here at the University of Toledo, meaning let Gary Pinkel see you outside of the colors that reflect this institution. Let him see you speak any other thing than positivity and express yourself in positivity other than this institution. And it's those things that you see where TPS here, everybody see that? Take a look at these shoes. TPS shoes, right? These are TPS proud Stacey Adams on my feet. But again, I learned that here. And it was through that because I made the mistake coming in as a freshman, and I wore a North Carolina Tar Heel jacket because it was a pretty jacket. I no longer had that jacket today. And I didn't have it an hour after that. They tore that jacket up and burned it, right? But again, it was the sense to say and pride that you're going to have those who are going to invest their time, effort, sweat, and blood into you. And it's that reciprocity of that. And so I, to this very day, when people say, who's your favorite football team? I say University of Toledo. Okay, what's your favorite NFL team? University of Toledo. Eventually they recognize that it's always going to be University of Toledo, because I'm proud to think that the leadership and the development within the classroom, outside the classroom, beyond, had came from this institution, from mission, vision, all those things I learned here. When people say you have a great aspiration and understanding of statistics, I said because I learned in the classroom, I learned it on the football field. Because everything on the football field was statistically driven, a human habit. You need to know down in probability by a percentage if you're going to be a great linebacker, a quarterback, all those things. I learned that all here. And it had paid great weight in going into the profession I'm in. But what I say to you and sharing with your own students, as well as yourself, is that understanding and develop that you're going to have great students who have great IQs and acumens and content knowledge. But the social IQ is the one that gets left out the most, that ultimately makes great leaders and great teachers. Is that an individual who comes in a classroom has a great understanding or develops an understanding of those that they serve and work with, as the one that relates. I tell people all the time, particularly in some of the urban communities, that kids don't care what you know until they know you care. When you have identified and shown me that you care for me beyond who I am, then I'm going to respond to you. I'm going to respond to you positively. And we always encourage that to our new teachers to say, listen, when you come in, if you expect Johnny to listen to you just between the hours of work, you're going to lose that child. And I said, some of my greatest headbutting students and what that I had, I said, but at the end of the day, I still talk to them to this day, because what happened, all I did was showed up to a football game. and watched them play and talked about it during school. Lifelong, positivity. So I think it's that mentorship and developing that and had carried over to me today to even as a superintendent, I run Young Men of Excellence, Young Women of Excellence, was a mentorship group, and Mr. Chris Scott, who is a member of the group when as a college student, now as a graduate, and we always say, I am my brother's keeper. Transforming lives starts with me. We walk into a room, that's right. It's an attitude. So again, what we've done with a lot of the students is developing attitude, because what you'll find in regards to when they talk about completion for college as well as high school, it's no longer the home factor, because the peer factors has overgrown in essence of its influence. So again, I continue to ask and recognize that, and then also, the website, developing and encouraging to go in Education Month. Develop that we as professionals and those with an education is going to encourage out of 1 month, if not all throughout the year, encouraging somebody to go in education. You say we need more diversity. Well, then you need more people expressing to go in education who of diversity. So we work with Dr. Lynn Heyman on Toledo with the University of Toledo of getting parents and others who are minorities to become teachers as spending experiences in the classroom. And at the same time, sometimes we have to get away from the narratives and some of the things that create people from not going in. Oh, you don't go into education to get rich. Don't nobody say that in the police force. Don't want to say that in the fire force. Don't no one say it in any other profession but education. That becomes the wrong narrative, because parents see it as monetary values of why you should get into employment or a job. Because as a teenager, I said that. And guess what? There was a counselor at the University of Toledo who worked with the athletic department and said, do I look like I'm struggling? And I looked at him and I said, no. And it was because of him and Chuck Ely's son, I transferred my major into education right here at the University of Toledo because of that. So again, never undermine our praxis and how we give innuendos about what we say about the praxis of education. Because I tell people it's a great career, rewarding career. At the same time, it sets up a retirement system for individuals who are living comfortably for the rest of their lives. At the same time, there's the experience of working with kids that is second to none. So again, there's appreciation to each and every one of you, because you have poured into not the leadership here, because understand what's leading Northwest Ohio is the representation of you. Everything that you have poured into us. So when you talked about Mr. Hostler and those who have carried him along as well as myself, they might have carried him a little bit more, but I'll mess with you, Doc. But again, a true appreciation. Thank you for all that you do. Never forget that, and go Rockets.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Great conversation, great panel. We need to continue to do this, and we'll find a way to make that happen. So on behalf of the College of Education, thank you again. I know you've got to run, but if there's any chance that you do have a few more minutes, we do have some lunches that perhaps you could take either with you or might be able to stay a little bit longer. But thank you very much again for coming to the University of Toledo. All right.